Thank you so much for having me here today. Based on everything I've heard this morning, I've changed my mind about 10 times with what do I want to share with you today, because the messages here are so beautiful and they really fit with nonviolent communication, also known as compassionate communication, which is what I prefer to call it. So again, thank you for having me. Communication is really important. Learning how to share what's going on for you and also listen to what's going on for others, to me, has been my life's work. And Marshall Rosenberg, who founded Nonviolent Communication, has helped change my life. I've been married to my husband George for 43 years, and we have 3 children, and we tried to raise them in the nonviolent communication model. In fact, my kids, who are now grown and out of the house and living their own lives, tell people they think that they need to go to counseling for all the conversations we always had growing up, and how we encourage them to talk about their feelings so much. And they think instead of coming from a family that didn't talk, they came from a family that talked too much. So communication, it's important. And people often think that because I have been teaching this for so long that I'm like an expert living my life as I move through the world. My children will tell you differently. In fact, just recently, my oldest daughter said to me, "Mom, you just aren't listening to me." And I think, oh my goodness, I teach people to listen. How can I not be listening to her? And in my head, I had all sorts of responses and excuses and justifications and defensiveness. Like I wanted to say, well, you've been talking for so long, you know, I need a chance to talk. Or I've been listening to you for years, isn't it my turn? But instead, I tried to connect with what was going on for her by saying I had to take a moment of silence and say, it seems like you're getting frustrated and you'd really like to be understood differently right now. Is that what you're saying? And she's like, well, yeah. So even as I've practiced this throughout my life, I make mistakes every single day. And then I try to have do-overs or reconnect with people. For me, this model of communication has brought along more connection in my life. And that's what I live for, is to be connected with people. And if I say or do something that doesn't bring around that connection, or in fact, if it does something to harm that connection, I will do my best to go back to that person and clear the air. So in nonviolent communication, we have 4 steps, and the 4 steps work towards being what you use when you're actually speaking and expressing yourself, or when you're listening and needing to hear what the person is saying, or when you're needing to give yourself some kindness and understanding. So those 4 steps are the same steps in those 3 different types of conversations and communication. And so what I would like to do with you today is just briefly share those steps, share with you how I like to communicate, and then if you have questions or ideas or anything you would like to respond with, please feel free. And also, I'm happy if I say something and it's confusing to you and you need an answer right away, just raise your hand and it does not derail me. I'm happy to have this be kind of an interactive process. So the first step for nonviolent communication is what we call observation. So observations are simply what you see or hear, without adding any of your assumptions or interpretations. We often get stuck in this first step, and so we don't get to go deeper because we start arguing at the first step. Because if you aren't really clean and clear with your language, you're going to be arguing what actually happened. And if you say what happened or what you heard with inflammatory words, the person receiving that is going to be like, no, I didn't say that. No, I didn't do that. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. And then you're arguing at that superficial place. So it sounds really simple, but in our culture, it's very hard to start a conversation very cleanly. I thought we had an agreement that we would meet at 12:30, and it's 1:10. Could you help me understand what kept you from showing up at 12:30? Instead of saying you're late, or you don't care about me because you're not here at our agreed upon time. So often it's about owning it. My understanding is that we had a 12:30 date. What's your understanding of what we agreed to? It's a little jargony. I mean, I probably wouldn't go through all of those words, but in order for you to understand what I mean by observation, that's what I'm trying to get across. We don't use adjectives, I guess would be the word, or adverbs when you are describing what was heard or what was said. And it's basically, an observation is not arguable. It's what everybody in the room would agree with. So you're not saying, did you see so-and-so? She looked pretty angry. Because when we say things like that, we say them as though they're a fact. And people start believing our interpretations. We start believing our own interpretations. And that's very dangerous. That's how gossip starts. That's how miscommunications start. That's how disconnections happen. So you want to be very careful about saying something that isn't actually factual or something that you have cleanly observed. So that's the first step in the 4-step process is, what are you seeing? What did you hear? And instead of saying, you said this, what is important is to say, what I thought I heard you say was this. Is that what you meant? Because often the words that come out of our mouth are not what we're thinking we're saying from our head. And so when we hear them repeated back to us, and we're being asked instead of told that we said that, we can say, oh my goodness, if that's what I said, that's not what I meant. Let me try again. So with the observation, you want to take ownership. This is a place to take ownership. This is what I thought you said. This is what I thought I heard. This is what I thought we agreed to. Are we on the same page with that? So that's the first step of the 4-step process. And the 4 steps turns out to be one sentence. So it's not a big, long, convoluted conversation. So you start with the observation. The observation is the triggering event. It is not the cause of your feelings. It's just something that happened and that triggered something in you. So then what did it trigger? Triggered a feeling. And so when you are expressing a feeling, it's important to use an emotional word, because we often in our culture say, I feel like you don't care about what happens. Well, that's all pointing the finger out at someone else. So I feel hurt, or I feel sad, or I feel delight, or I feel yummy inside, or I feel scared or terrified or sad. So to describe a feeling word, you say, I feel, and you follow it with one word. The minute you start saying, I feel like, or I feel you, or I feel that, you're going to be talking about someone else, and you're criticizing that. Those words come out as criticisms to someone else. And by the way, nonviolent communication is all about taking responsibility for what you feel and what's going on for you and how to meet your own needs. And it is not about blaming and judging others. It's exactly the opposite. It's about managing our judgments and understanding that our judgments are all about our own unmet needs, and someone else's judgments are about the same thing. So it's learning to not take on judgments from someone else, to not hear blame or criticism, to learn how to reframe it in your head. If a criticism comes at you, Mom, you never listened to me, I could defend myself and start feeling all hurt and bothered inside. Or I could flip that around in my head saying, she needs to be understood. She needs to be heard right now. What am I missing? How am I not giving her the experience of being heard? So instead of taking that criticism on, it's important to try to open up my heart and understand what is missing for her in that given moment. Somehow I was not expressing to her what I thought she was saying. So observations, feelings, and then needs. So needs are, in my opinion, the most important step of this four-step process. So I have a lot to say about needs. Needs have nothing to do with anybody else. There's no action to what we need. So my needs are what cause my feelings. Your needs are what cause your feelings. When your needs are being met, you will experience what we think of as the happy feelings, the more upside feelings. When your needs aren't being met, you're going to feel the feelings that we think of as negative. They're not negative, they're just harder to experience. You might feel hurt or frustrated or irritated or angry. You might feel sad or lonely or upset. And that is simply because you have a need that's not being met. And it's your job to meet your needs. It's my job to meet my needs. I don't expect someone else to meet my needs for me. When I have a need, I can ask if you'll support me, or I can ask for something I might need. And we'll get to that in a moment, because you have the right to say yes or no to that. But needs have no action, and they're universal. We have the same needs throughout the world. The way we get those needs met are what can be in conflict. And so we try to meet our needs in a way that also works for the people around us. So needs are things like honesty, integrity, peace, harmony, connection, flexibility, compassion, adventure, play. What else is there? Support's a big one. Love, community, freedom, independence, the values. Another word for needs would be values. What do you value in your life? What's missing if your needs are not being met? There is no action to needs. I don't need you to do something. So let's say I want to be heard and understood, and I'm saying I feel frustrated because I would like to be heard. That's the way I keep it focused on me, and I keep it from blaming you. I would not want to say I feel frustrated because you are not listening. So it's I feel because I. When I'm the listening person, are you feeling because you? Are you feeling hurt because you would like connection? Are you feeling sad because you would have liked more support? So are you feeling because you need this? I'm feeling hurt because I was hoping for more time together. So that's how you stop that judgment game, that blame game, is by owning your feelings and your needs, and by asking, are you feeling because you need? To me, that's like one of the biggest, most important pieces in our culture that we're missing. I also, in my teachings, in my classes, and in my counseling sessions, I often focus on more of the listening piece, because as a culture, I think we are starved to be heard, and we don't know how to listen. We all want to talk. Nobody really wants to listen. And so in my work, I focus on that probably a little heavier than I do on the speaking piece, because we all seem to know how to speak. We may not do it cleanly and clearly, but we do seem to know how to ask for what we want and put it out there. But we have a more difficult time being quiet and listening to others. So this needs piece brings that around. It's so important when you're listening to someone is to find out what are they needing right now. And you can make assumptions or you can interpret, but unless you ask people what they're needing, you won't know for sure. So it's important to say, like I did with my daughter, are you feeling frustrated because you want to be heard? And you're just making a guess. And by making a guess, that's a gift to the person that you're with, because it shows them that you care enough to be present and that you want to connect with their heart. You want to connect with their humanness. So listening isn't about giving advice. I do a whole exercise on the pitfalls of listening. So the pitfalls are things that I do in my life a lot, and I'm guessing many of you might. Pitfalls of listening are things like giving advice, fixing the situation, telling a story about yourself when you're listening to someone else's difficulties or challenges, or one-upping them, like, you think that's bad in your life, let me tell you what's happened to me. And we do those things because we think that we are connecting with people's pain. We think we're taking their pain away by sharing our pain. And really what happens is we're taking away the focus off of them. When they are in pain and they are trying to express themselves, it's important to listen and to feed back what you think you're hearing them say, rather than move into advice or defending yourself or telling a story or, like I said, fixing it. We have a tendency to want to fix people because we are uncomfortable being with people when they're in pain. And so we want to fix them so we feel better. When really, if we could just listen and allow them to express themselves, that's going to help their pain move forward. So I got off track there a little bit. I got on my horse about listening, and I want to stay focused on the 4 steps. Sorry about that. So the needs have no action. Again, it's about saying, I feel something because I need this. And remember, it's I need support, or I need peace, or I need harmony, or I need connection, or I need freedom or choice in my life, or I need adventure, or I need play or comfort. So it's I need one of those values rather than I need you to do something. So once I figure out what my needs are, then I can make a request. I can make a request, and when I make a request of someone else, I need to be prepared for them to say yes or for them to say no. And often we think if we make a request and we make it sound all beautiful and we're using perfect words, of course, who would say no to that request? But people need to be able to say no if it doesn't meet their needs to do what I'm asking. And if I get irritated or upset by a no, then I just have to look back at myself and recognize I really had an expectation, like a demand rather than a request. So a request, first of all, needs to be spoken really clearly. How many times have you made requests of your kids or your partners or your friends, and they say yes to it, but then it doesn't happen? And part of that is because when we make requests, we're not making them really clear. A simple statement that many of you might laugh at is, hey, honey, would you take the garbage out? Yeah, sure. And then I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and the garbage is not taken out, and the garbage truck comes, and our garbage is still sitting in the driveway. I didn't make my request really clear. Hey, honey, would you take the garbage out before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, because the garbage is always here by 8:15. And so then if they say yes and they don't do it, that's another story. But if I don't make it really clear, when do I want it done by, who's going to do it, how often, I can't complain if it doesn't get done within my timing. Same thing, would you do the dishes tonight? This is a big one in my family with my kids and my husband. Hey, I cooked, would someone do the dishes? And whoever says yes, I'm thinking, oh, good. Well, I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I watch those dirty dishes sitting there, because for me, I don't relax until the work is done. And then, after the dishes are done and the kitchen's clean, I can sit down and watch a TV show or read a book or something. So I have to be able to say, hey, would somebody do the dishes, 10 minutes after we're done? Or would you do the dishes before you go to bed tonight, so that I know they'll be done in someone else's timing? Because the rest of my family does not live by my timing. I'm the Virgo in the family. I like things done. They like to relax. And so I need to honor that they have that need. It's different than my need. And so how do we work it together? Yeah, Mom, I'll do the dishes, but I don't want to do them right now. I'll do them before I go to bed. Great. So then I just have to teach myself to not look in the kitchen. The dishes will get done. So requests are about asking for what you want and being really clear about what it is you're asking for. So anything that you have expectations of in your head, time-wise, or by when it's going to get done, or how often, needs to be expressed. And then the person that you're making that request of has the right to say yes or no, or to negotiate. Like, yeah, I don't want to do the dishes right now, but I'll do them, in a few hours. Does that work for you, Mom? Yeah, sure. So requests are not demands. They're simply requests. And it's my job to get my needs met. If I need a clean house and no one else wants to do it that particular time, then I'll clean it myself, or I'll rework in my head, hey, the house doesn't need to be so clean today. You can relax, and you've got time tomorrow, do it. So it's about negotiating with people and not expecting everyone to have the same values in the same moment. We all have the same values, but the way we meet those are different. Everyone in my family enjoys a clean house. Clean being the operative word. What's clean to someone might not be to me. And so it's understanding how we can operate together. That was a lot, and I went over time. But I would like to ask if there's anyone that has questions or comments, because Amazawa said I could take a little time. And I see hands. Is that still okay? Yes. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yes.
I remember years ago learning about nonviolent communication
Well, I love hearing you were great today, but actually, what would actually be wonderful also with You Are a Breath of Fresh Air is help me understand what impacted you on what I've said today. And then that would be a real gift to me. If you said, oh, I really like the color yellow or something, I don't know. But if you shared what it is that helped you enjoy or not enjoy something that was said.
Because what I understand from the past is if I were to say you are beautiful or you are ugly, either of those could trigger something in you, right?
Yes, exactly. They're both judgments. You're beautiful, you're ugly, they're both judgments. So, like, what made you feel like describing me as a breath of fresh air? Though I did love hearing that, but what was it that you liked or enjoyed?
Well, I felt you were very authentic, and what you were saying was very applicable to my own life, and very helpful in hearing, supportive. Uh, and I enjoyed that authenticity, and so on.
Thank you. I will say, now that touches me deeply because one of the things I strive for most in my life is to be authentic. So to have you say that is very moving for me inside. Thank you. That is so much deeper and richer. Even though the first words were beautiful and of course nice to hear, it's helpful to hear a deeper message. That was a deeper message. Thank you so much.
Yes, I thought you used the scenarios. They were very relatable to all of us. We can all understand what you're saying. That's what I liked about it. You took your own situation, and we've all been there, and so it was very relatable. So that's what I enjoyed.
Thank you. And Heather, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I too appreciate the authenticity and the clarity and seeing where I'm not clear and where I would like to be more clear. Something that's come to me recently is when one is used to a toxic close relationship where you're not feeling heard and you're not able to repair and you have to just kind of stuff it, and then suddenly you find yourself in a very healthy relationship. There's some time to adjust to that. I'm finding it's like rewiring yourself. Yeah. Wow, they care what I think, and this little tiny conflict is not going to blow up. They're actually asking me how I feel, and it's kind of like going to a 2-star restaurant, and then all of a sudden you're at a 4-star restaurant. So I'm kind of thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we get addicted to our old bad patterns, and when they change for the better, it's almost like unbelievable, and it takes practice to accept those new patterns coming in. Yeah, thank you, Heather. Yes.
I felt that one of the things that was particularly useful, thank you for your gifts you've given us today. One of them was the piece about how we may not see the same situation the same. We're probably not going to. So to be able to use language that invites their perception. And then somehow I found myself in the position of having to kind of say, well, we don't have to, because you experience it this way and I experience it this way, neither of us is right or wrong. I mean, I don't know really how to navigate that really graciously when I find myself in that situation.
Yeah, navigating right and wrong. We try to keep that out of nonviolent communication and keep it to feelings and needs. And that way you step away from right and wrong. Like, oh, you did that because you were needing this. Now I understand. Maybe someone's actions landed poorly for you, but if you can get to the underlying need that they were trying to meet, and they just did it in a way that didn't work for you. And so it's been my life's work and continues to be how to get away from that right and wrong and judging. It's very powerful work.
It's very separating to be in that, I'm right, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yes.
Even if it's me saying I'm wrong, I'm sorry, thinking I can fix it by taking the blame.
Yeah, we can say I'm wrong and I'm sorry, but without saying, I see how my actions impacted you in the way they did. And for that, I regret what I did because I had no intention of hurting you in the way that that landed. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
It also, for me, besides the authenticity of that manifestation, which I appreciate so much, is it sets up a foundation of safety. You know, when we don't feel safe, we don't open up. We don't share. We're scared, we suppress, and on and on and all those layers. So to have that foundation and to take accountability and to trust,
Mm-hmm.
those are the two that I feel
Yeah.
is everything in any kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we can grow from that and help each other heal too.
Yeah. Safety is important. That reminds me of a story that when I was walking, I was a stay-at-home mom when my kids were little, and I was walking my kids to school, and they and all their friends are around, and my daughter was in 2nd grade at the time, my oldest, and I heard her say to her friend, "Let's ask my mom. We can talk to her about anything." And I'm all puffed up in the back thinking, oh, goodness, she thinks they can talk about anything. So they turn around and they said to me, "Mom, what's French kissing?" And I went, oh, boy. Maybe I don't want this communication going quite as deeply as we encourage. So safety is important. It's important for people to know that they have a safe place to express themselves. And when I'm working with couples, that's one of the grounding things that I try to establish quickly is what do you need in order to feel safe to share? Because we won't share if we don't have that emotional safety. So thank you for mentioning that. I still haven't described French kissing to my kids.
I may have misheard, but I thought you said early on that there were 3 types of communication.
I did say that. So the 4 steps is observations, feelings, needs, and requests. The 3 types are whether I'm going to be the speaker, that's one, I'm going to be the listener, that's one, or I'm going to give myself empathy. That's the 3rd one. Like if I'm really upset because I did something that harmed someone else or hurt someone else, how do I calm myself down? How do I give myself that emergency first aid so then I can be available for them? That's my biggest struggle, is the self-empathy. I can give empathy to anyone else till the cows come home, but to give it to myself, ooh, that's a challenge. It still is 40 years later, but it's important. Okay, one more question, and then I think we've gone way over time. I do have workshops. I'll leave some business cards on the back table. I do counseling sessions. I don't have any workshops coming up, but if people are interested, I offer those. I can come back and talk. I've just given you like a little tiny piece of nonviolent communication. But thank you for having me. This was a delight.